Hey, everybody, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and today I've got an extra special treat for you all. We are officially giving my husband the baptism of fire. I'd like to introduce everybody to my amazing husband and business partner, Greg.
Hi, everyone.
So today we wanted to jump in and do something a little bit fun with you guys and tell you about a really cool little journey we've been on over the last few months in this season that we've all been in. And, you know, although I know some of you will be listening to this podcast way down the track, you're still going to get a bit of a giggle, I think, and hopefully lots of value out of what we're going to talk about today. So we specifically want to have a bit of a chat about the journey that Greg and I have been on as we have gone through the virtual party and event landscape. And we wanted to start by telling you guys, well, actually, why don't we tell everyone a little bit about you and what you do in the business first? Because I feel like I've been chatting on this podcast for months now, and we've been thinking, you know, what could we talk about where we can pull Greg in? Because we've been doing a few little videos and recordings and trainings together and having a lot of fun with it, particularly in our Accelerator membership. We just did a really great little one this morning.
So I'm the star of all our videos, obviously.
Well, our members are really enjoying hearing from Greg because they don't have to listen to my voice all the time. So
I love the strategy. I love working with the companies and I love working with strategy. So that's where I love to dive into. That's my favorite bit. And I guess that takes us back to the March long weekend when we received a call about everything that was happening with this lockdown and that we were going to face an uncertain time where we weren't able to be face-to-face anymore. And so direct sellers, our first love has always been face-to-face, and that's where everybody has always excelled. That's been the whole industry. And so back on the March long weekend, and we're at the lake where we go water skiing with our family.
Yeah, we were hanging out camping with our kids.
And it was Monday. It was a public holiday, and we got this call, and we jumped in the boat, and we had a Zoom call to say, hey, what can we do to help? How can we help? Because this is big. We're going into lockdown. We're going to lose our face-to-face interaction. This is a real worry to a lot of the companies. How can we help?
So, I mean, keeping in mind at that time, we were on the back of doing weekly keynotes. So Greg and I were traveling interstate every week at that point to speak at many of your conferences. And I think we'd been away for maybe 6 weeks in a row. It had been since quite literally the first week after Christmas was our first trip away. And
for 3 weeks I didn't come home.
That's right. You didn't. Actually, it was really quiet at home. It was great. I came home in between speaking engagements, but Greg stayed away to keep working with the companies. And so March long weekend was our first little bit of settled time at the lake with the kids, and we were having, you know, we were skiing with our friends and having a great time camping, and we get this call from the DSA, and they said, look, we need to talk about what we can be doing for direct selling, party plan, network marketing companies in Australia and New Zealand at this time, because everyone could see the writing on the wall. We were all about to go into lockdown. And there was a lot of concern over people that were relying particularly on party plan. It was network marketers. You guys are a little bit more attuned to doing the online stuff, but the party plan businesses were a real concern for the DSA and therefore for us as well. And so, yeah, we needed to get some internet in order to have this Zoom call because, of course, we were camping. So we hopped in the boat. I think we've got a great photo of it. We might share it on the podcast if we can locate it. We'll pop it up on the screen for you guys.
So we were talking about the virtual event landscape. And I guess if you go back to how it used to be, the people who we were talking with who did virtual events, they were the rock stars. They were the people who could hold, 500 people. They could hold massive
I don't
events.
like using the word rock stars. I want to call them the influencers, the naturals, the video naturals, the ones that, were digital, tech savvy, the leaders out there.
So there's rock stars.
Okay.
Whatever, you call them what you want. I'm calling them rock stars because they would, like a rock star, they would get in front of a whole crowd of people. But that's not everybody's gift. So and that's quite interesting. And so what we had was an industry where people were used to working face to face. And so we had a heap of experience in working with people who previously were the type of person who was really out there. And they were the people who were keen to do virtual parties, But now we had to find a way to bring everybody across.
Well, we realized it was a matter of, for thousands and thousands of people out there that were doing party plan and they were really comfortable with the in-home thing, they were going to be given a choice, which was either get into the space of doing virtual parties or parties on Facebook or using online platforms, or park your business. And we didn't want to see people parking that business.
And people were parking their business left, right, and centre. And they were saying, there is no way, absolutely no way that we can do this. No way. And then a lot of people who did were fantastic, had many great attributes, but they had something that went wrong that completely stopped them in their tracks. And they'd get to the end of that event and go, oh, it failed miserably, but maybe it was just one thing. And we had people who would try again, and then the second time something else would go wrong for them. The third time something different would go wrong, and they were all fairly predictable things if you could look from the outside. And so we had person after person who would give it a couple of goes and give up, and we're like, no, this is not how it needs to be.
So as part of that, we then decided that we needed to get our hands dirty. And you did the best thing any husband could ever do for a wife, honestly.
I'm still punished for it.
So
no good deed goes unpunished.
we decided our old training needed to be parked. We didn't want to be doing the advanced stuff anymore. We needed to be able to work with everyone from every walk of life, from every age, every experience level, and be able to get people online with their direct selling and party plan businesses, people who had no experience. And in many cases, we knew that we were about to be exposed to a lot of people that had never used Facebook before and were going to have to make that choice. And we wanted to help them make that a choice that was easy. I just realized we're dressed the same, by the way. Matchy.
Even our hair.
Oh, funny. Yeah. Hilarious. So, Greg did something that I implore all of the husbands out there. This, if you want to get in your wife's good books, do this. We put a little challenge out there, didn't we? And I don't know whose idea this was actually at the start.
I'll take the credit, whatever.
Will you take the credit?
I will take the credit.
So, you actually contacted a couple of direct selling head offices, party plan company head offices, and what did you offer them?
I said, host a party, we'll come and we'll buy stuff.
Yeah, essentially. Greg's, we wanted
invite
to
us to the party, we come along, we'll support, and to encourage people to invite us and to encourage them to have a go.
Yeah.
We're going to support them, we're going to buy stuff.
Yeah. So essentially what we wanted to do was we wanted to see what was going on out there for you guys. We wanted to know what were people experiencing, what were the pitfalls, what were the challenges, what was working, what wasn't working for anyone who was running virtual parties or events. We didn't want to just sit here and teach you what we already knew. We wanted to actually figure out what were the downfalls, what were the areas that you almost needed help in. And the only way for us to do that effectively was to get our hands dirty. And so Greg gave me permission to go shopping for a month. And we are still receiving
3 months later parcels a day, even now.
So
every day. This is not one day a week. This is every day at least 4
some
parcels.
Of the photographs, if we've got some photos, we'll share those in the podcast as well. But what essentially what we did was we said, guys, we will, if you invite us to your virtual party, you don't need to have had any experience. Just invite us. We will be a fly on the wall. We'll watch your event. We will give you feedback if you want it. Not everyone wanted the feedback. And we said that if you invite us, we promise we'll buy a product from you. So you're guaranteed a sale.
And the funny thing is, so Sam is about to tell us here and now, I can see her notes, that we attended 60 parties in 30 days. But I know from how many packages we've received, it's not true. That's all
he knows about.
It's not true, 60 parties in 30 days.
Look, I'm not going to lie.
It's more than that.
Isolation was a challenging time, and it was my therapy. I was retail therapy online. Look, you guys.
Sam would have 5 parties going at once.
There was a day Greg walked into the living room. It was Saturdays were the biggest day because, of course, that's when everyone wanted to hold their parties, and I didn't want to leave anyone hanging.
An iPad and a mobile phone.
2 mobile phones some days. I had everything on tripods in front of me. Wish you'd taken a photo of this. We didn't think at the time to do this, but there was one particular day, I think we did this on 2 occasions, where I had 5 parties running at once simultaneously. I had a notebook. I've got a notebook that's my virtual party notebook, and I've got every consultant's name, all the details about their party, how they opened it, how they closed it, what products I bought from them, everything written in this notebook, which is my virtual party journal. But this particular day, I had 5 parties going simultaneously, and it was pretty funny. We've got the 4 kids running around in the background. I've got 2 iPads, 2 laptops, mobile phones.
So the purpose of all this, I guess, is that we were looking to go and change all of our training, which used to be for these people I'll call the rock stars, and we now needed to make it so that everybody could have some help in this current time, crazy times. Yeah. So that's why we had to do this market research, because we needed to rebuild what we did to suit the current need.
Which we did, but we learned some really interesting things along the way. And you know, truthfully, I'm probably want to share with you guys more the fun, interesting things that we learned than the actual useful, interesting things. Although I think these are pretty useful to note, because I've got to say I'm pretty gobsmacked that across these 60 parties that you know about, we did observe some crazy things. And I will say that we had with regard to the things that worked and the things that didn't work, we've seen everything. And every time I thought I'd seen everything, every time I thought we'd seen everything, there was something new. So
and when Sam says everything, she means everything is in Rudy Nudie everything.
we had 3 parties out of the 60 that you know about. 3 parties in particular I can remember where the person who was doing the presenting didn't tell the rest of the family that they were live. In one case, we had a husband strip himself down behind her for the purpose of getting in the shower. She was in the bedroom, and so he stripped down.
Rudy Nudie right there.
Right behind her. She had no idea.
Standing up and she was sitting down.
Yeah. We've had kids getting undressed behind. That was probably not the most advisable thing. Avoid that one, particularly when you're doing a Facebook Live, because again, the kids didn't know. We actually had 2 husbands undress themselves. One was just he was walking around the house nude.
And then we had a presenter who was sitting just like us.
Oh, that had to be my most. I have to tell this story because so my favorite party to go to was always all of them were my favorite. But my favorite party was the beauty, the makeup, cosmetics, beauty products, all that sort of stuff. I love that gear. And this particular person was busily demonstrating. She was doing a makeup demonstration. So she was sitting at her table and she's talking away. She's showing off the product. She's doing her makeup. But then she realized she was missing a brush. And she just said, hang on a sec. She stood up. She got away from her desk. And then you see her panic and sit back down in the biggest hurry ever, because she had decided, for whatever reason, that while in isolation, why wear pants? Who needs to wear pants?
A G-string is fine.
G-string will do. So she got up to get her brush and, of course, flashed everybody everything. And, of course, there was no carrying on from there. She lost all concentration at that point. What else have we seen? Family feuds. We've seen the person doing the demonstration get into an argument with someone in their family in the background and then abandon the live because they had to have this argument out while online. And probably the thing that drove me mad the most in this process, particularly this day when I had 5 parties going at once, I nearly threw my phone because the amount bad temper, I know. But there was a point where I know I'd seen a lot of parties, so probably I would say my patience was waning. But private conversations while you're doing a live drives me nuts. And if I can just put this out there, the one thing you should never do is when you're doing a virtual party or a live or any kind of a video, try to avoid having those private conversations. And the private conversations usually end up being where people are reading that chat box.
But not actually explaining anything about what it says and just talking out loud to the answer.
To just the person who's written the comment and ignoring everybody else there.
And it's such a one-sided conversation that people there don't even know what the conversation's about.
I had one instance where the person who had invited me in, I had a contact on Messenger with them. So I messaged them and said, stop having private conversations with people. At which point she does this. She picks her phone up. She goes, hang on a sec, everybody. And she responds to my message in Messenger on her phone silently while everyone's on live waiting for her to come back to them. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go crazy. But we did actually learn some stuff that was useful too, didn't we?
Absolutely. Heaps of things. Heaps of things.
We'll stop harping on the nudity and the private conversations. But something that you pointed out that we really recognized in this time, did you want to talk about this?
If I can read your writing.
So Greg said this, but I'm going to repeat it because he doesn't know what I'm talking about right now, is that we recognize that we really had to be able to help as many people as possible replicate those in-home parties online. So we discovered that a lot of people were treating their virtual party or event as though it was something completely different to an in-home party, when actual fact, the most successful ones we observed were the ones where they ran them very much like an in-home event or party. There are some things that change, definitely. Like you can't go as long. You don't have alcohol involved. The products that you share, you can't go through the whole range, and you also can't bring the sensors in, or can you?
Whoa, deep.
Well, I mean, touch, taste. What have we got? Touch, taste. Smell.
Yeah.
I was going to say touch, taste, feel, but I knew that was wrong. Touch, taste, and smell. Obviously, you've got your hearing, but your touch, taste, and your smell are things that are very hard to bring in. But in actual fact, we discovered some consultants were incredible at still bringing those senses into play by using storytelling. We don't want to get into that too much today.
So again and again, we got from people that they're best as a face-to-face communicator. Direct sellers typically are people. It's really important that we have eye contact, that we have that interaction with people. It's really energizing. It's really powerful. It helps us get feedback to make sure we're on track. And so we found that these people needed to get that same feeling in a virtual event that they were getting in a face-to-face event. And so the same processes, the same company training. So would you want to take all that company training that you've had, whether you're brand new or whether all that wisdom that's in the company training, do we throw it out the window? All the wisdom in our time in the business, if it's 5 years or it's 30 years, do you throw that out the window and try and do something different? Or do you want to start with something that is as similar as possible to what you already know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that we found was absolutely vital, was helping people to translate that with as little translation as possible. How do we get that online?
And interestingly, I mean, you had a chat with a consultant, Julie, yesterday, who is one of our amazing postie consultants. I'm wearing, her outfits today.
Yep.
Julie was one of the parties that we went to. We actually hosted a few parties in this process. So there were a few people that came to us and said, look, we want you to attend a party, but can you be our host? Because we don't have a host for the party that you're going to come to. And of course, why not? So we went along and we hosted a few parties. Our family and friends, I think, are a little sick of our party invitations, but they all came along and had fun. There were only 12. So one of the ones we did was postie, which is clothing. Another of my favorite things. I had a lot of fun with this, but the thing I wanted to note about Julie and a number of people in this space that we had these experiences with were actually not even active on Facebook at this time. So Julie was somebody who was a master at doing in-home parties and events, but she'd never used Facebook. In fact, she was quite, Julie would be okay with me saying this, she was really against the idea of doing Facebook. She'd had some bad experiences with it, didn't want to go there, wasn't interested. And you had a really great chat with her yesterday actually about where she's at now after that journey, because it's been quite a big journey for her.
Absolutely. So she loves the tech. She continues to use it some of the time, even though she's already gone back to doing face-to-face events. She said it's going to be a part of her business forever. And she gave a really interesting example. And this is a lady who is in her, she's 67 years old. And as we said, she's someone who was against using Facebook. And then she gave me an example of doing an in-home party recently where she did $1,500 in sales in the in-home party. At the same time, she also had several other of that host's friends attend and had an additional $1,000 in sales through Zoom in that same party. And this is from a person who 2 or 3 months ago was not using any of this kind of digital technology, and now she's just added it in and gained an extra $1,000 sales in one event this week just because of that sort of tech.
And we've had a very similar story from another company that we've been doing a lot of work with for a couple of years now. And they said that they had one particular leader, and this story had me in tears because it just made me so excited to hear this. But they had one leader who literally parked their business. So March rolled around, isolation happened, and they said, that's it, parking my business. They had a whole bunch of parties planned, in-home parties. And they said, look, we're going to postpone them all until isolation stops. And this person themselves were a fairly high up leader, but their leader called them to account. And after about a month of this, put the hard word on them and said, what are you planning on doing? Just completely pausing your business, or are you going to lead your people? Are you going to show them that even though this is uncomfortable, even though this is not something that you know on the outset want to get out and do, you're going to get in and have a crack at it anyway, and then lead the rest of your team to do the same thing? And so finally, this particular person agreed to do 2 parties online. One was going to be a party that they hosted themselves to their family. And the second party was one where they were going to have their sister, I think it was, host the party and invite her friends in. And that was it. This person said, I'm not doing anything after that. I'll prove to you that I've done it, and then leave me alone. But what happened was that in the very first party, this person made something like $1,500 worth of sales. And in the second party, apparently they got 8 additional party bookings and sold over $2,000 worth of product. This person then sent a testimonial through to the company owner, which said, and if I get it, I can't use all the language she used because some of it was inappropriate, but she used a lot of swear words to tell this person how blown away she was with the results she'd experienced. And she said that by sitting in her living room chair, she had made over $12,000 just in 1 month alone. And that didn't include any of the in-person sales she knew she was going to be able to start getting. So she was really blown away with the fact that by getting out of her comfort zone, she was now able to not only do her in-home parties when isolation stopped, but now she had a new skill, and she was able, like Julie, to add in an extra offer, an extra opportunity that was going to grow her business significantly. So I think this has been such a big blessing because it's pushed so many people to learn something that they haven't learned. But can I also just say, I don't think, if you're sitting here right now and you're listening to this and you're going, oh, I'm a little bit, I wasn't one of those people that branched out. I was one of those people that paused. It's still not too late to get out there and have a crack at this. Don't be stuck in that feeling of, oh, I'm left behind. It's just all too little too late. It's never too little too late. Get out there and have a go. And there are 3 key things we wanted to talk about that we observed over this period and in all of these 60 parties that you know about.
That's right. So there's a few steps that it's not just a matter of turning up on the day. So normally when you have an in-home event, there's certain things that you do with the host, there's certain conversations and things and certain encouragement that you have. And so if we skip all that and we just go on and say, right, we've got this event, we're just going to turn up, we've skipped an entire step. And so making sure that the host engagement is done right, that allows us at the end to ask for the sales. If we skip all of that, then it makes it really hard at the end to say, hey, would you like to buy anything? Yeah.
So across all of these parties, something we noticed really clearly that was happening again and again and again was the fact that that pre-engagement phase was being often ignored or missed. And a lot of the time the host was non-existent. So the consultant was not involving the host in the process. They weren't pre-engaging the host and the guests, which then led to them not asking for the sale and not closing the sale at the end because it felt super unnatural. And the reason it felt unnatural was because they hadn't put the time and effort into getting the host excited, getting the host on board, and building those relationships and getting to know the guests just that little bit before they went live. And so they were going in live cold, which meant it felt like a cold sell, which is exactly what it was. And for a lot of them, they chickened out of the sell. And we saw this happen a lot.
So if the host is involved, they encourage. They say, oh, wow, that would be great for you. They do a lot of the selling for you, and they do it from a genuine place where they say, this item, I think you really should go ahead with it. And that's done for you if you show the host and if you welcome them to be part of that process. But if you just turn up and just you chat with their friends and you broadcast, then you don't get the results.
And one of the things that we saw done really, really well for many, across all businesses, but for many consultants did this, was that they would get to know each of the guests. This is why sometimes it's good not to have too many guests at the event. They get to know each of the guests just a tiny bit before they went live, and they were then able to use their names during their live and speak into, whatever it was that they learned about that person. Julie, again, was really great at doing this. She asked one question at the very beginning of her live to each person. I also saw Wendy from Party Light do this. I've seen a lot of people do this, where they ask one question at the start that breaks the ice, but what it then does is give that consultant that little bit of extra information that helps them speak into each of those people. And these things were all really clever ways of making each individual guest feel like they were a part of the event, just like they would if they were in the home.
Yeah, so whether it be cleaning products, makeup, candles, whatever, knowing something about the people so you can speak to that was really powerful, whereas just broadcasting about what you think is not the same.
Yeah. So that was the first thing that we observed, was the fact that people were missing the importance of pre-engagement and involving the host, which then led to difficulty with asking for the sale at the end because it simply felt cold and unnatural. The second thing we observed was that a lot of people really struggled with the video.
So if we're going to sit here and be like newsreaders, and then you've got no feedback, you've got no understanding of what's going on in people's homes, what they're liking, what they're not liking, and no feedback on an energy level.
No engagement,
The news reading is a gift. If you're supposed to be a newsreader or a broadcaster like that, that's a very special thing that not many people have. Some
people did that really well, but most didn't, because most of us do so much better with that human interaction. And we've talked about this before, because obviously I do a lot of webinars and podcasts where I'm not seeing you guys. I'm not able to engage with you directly. And I've practiced that for many years, but you struggle with doing these sorts of things because you like that human interaction.
That's right. So for me, Facebook Lives and webinars are really tough where I can't see a thing. All I've got is a camera with just us there. Whereas for me, a Zoom call is really powerful because I can look at the person's eyes and I can see I can get some feedback. I can see what's on their face. I can see when they're taking notes. I can see if I'm being boring. I can see if they're responding to my energy.
Yeah.
And we found that again and again, most people had that same issue because direct sellers are people.
Absolutely. You guys are used to doing one-on-one, and so
you read people, you connect with people, and that's powerful for you, and most people need it.
And as part of that, for that reason, we actually found Zoom. And again, we've seen every way of running a party. We've seen people doing parties with just posts. We've seen people doing Facebook Lives. But again and again, the thing that we saw succeeding for most was Zoom, because it allowed the consultant to read and feed off everybody that was there. It took away the need for the consultant to be holding the energy up the whole time, because people could converse with each other. And the thing I liked best about it was it took away the chat. So you could actually unmute people and allow them to talk to you instead of having to read the screen while you're trying to demonstrate, which creates a really funny and barrier and often an awkward silence as well while the consultant's trying to read the chat.
So much more conversational. And that kind of brings us into number 3, which is that we need a starting point. You need a place to find your own groove from. You need something that works, because if you have to start from scratch, if you have to build a wheel all from the beginning, how hard is that? And will people really have the tenacity as a whole group? Maybe a small number of people will just keep going and going and going until they nut it. But we found again and again and again, it's so much better to give someone a really solid starting point. This is precisely what to do the first time round.
Yeah.
And then they'll try it and they'll go, oh, I like that, I like that, I like that, I like that. And
this works,
but for me, now I can try this.
Yeah.
And then if that didn't work, they go, oh, well, I'll go back to my starting point and I'll tweak it again, or it did work and I'll keep it. So having a successful starting point that told people exactly what they had to do. So you've got to take care of your host engagement at the beginning. And these are the 5 steps that you must do. And here at the end is how you can make sure that you're servicing people properly so that you can close the sale. So once they had those starting points in place, they're like, wow, and they would just get momentum.
Yep.
And that momentum would then allow them to tweak it to their individual personality. And in their 3rd or 4th or 5th party, they'd start to do that. And that's when they'd really start to soar. But But starting from somewhere that is already successful was really powerful.
Yeah. And something just to add to that as well is that where we saw people copying and trying to replicate someone else, so they'd see someone else, maybe in the company that was kicking but doing these virtual parties, and they thought, well, I guess that's the way to do it, so I'm going to copy what they're doing. What often happened was that they weren't communicating in their natural way. They were trying to copy a way somebody else did it, and it didn't feel congruent. It didn't feel right because you could see that consultant wasn't being themselves. So even if it feels like, you're uncomfortable, you're not quite sure if you know what you're doing, it could all go wrong, still try to be yourself. As scary as that might seem, copying somebody else is not going to help people connect to you. And you are really powerful just being yourself. In fact, we're our most powerful when we're being ourselves. So finding your own groove when you're doing a virtual party or event is probably the one greatest tip I could give everybody is get out and find your way. Find your method of communicating. Find your way of demonstrating. Find your key products that you love the most, that you're most passionate about, share, because people will really feed off that. So should we recap those things really quickly before we wrap up?
Engagement.
So engaging. The first thing was engaging people in advance. So don't wait until you're live in order to do your engagement. So get your host involved. Do your pre-engagement, and your sale at the end, when it comes to asking for that sale, will come so much more naturally, and it won't feel cold. The second thing is just that Zoom, that face-to-face interaction for most people is a great place to start. Maybe one day you're meant to be a broadcaster, but it always helps to start with Zoom because it's much more like it. And look, for some of you guys, you're going to prefer Facebook Live, whatever that works out for you. But if I would just say don't be afraid of trying video. I've seen some people totally chicken out of the video thing and they just go with posts. It's very hard for people to connect to you if they can't see you.
And then the starting point. So the key to that is, so we've got a 90-minute free webinar that actually gives you all of that. It actually gives you all of the steps. It goes right through it, and it's everything you need to know to be really successful in this space. So we've got the 90-minute webinar that does all that. And of course, at the end, if you'd like to do some training with us to go further, that's there as well. But the key is that if you want those 5 steps that actually give you everything you need to know, that's right there. And just jump on to our webinar about that.
We'll share the link with you guys. So if you want to jump in and do our free webinar on the 5 stages to run a virtual party or event, this webinar is designed for anyone, no matter whether you've been running events for ages or whether you've never run one before. And we will walk you through those 5 stages of how to run a virtual party or event and get the best results you can and have it feel comfortable and natural and to have fun in that process. We'd love to have you come along to that free webinar. We'll share the link in the show notes with you guys. And then, of course, for those that want to do a deeper dive with us, we've got some awesome extra opportunities for you to do with us as well. But jump on in, do that free webinar. We'd love to have you along.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's been really great chatting with you guys today. It's good we finally dragged Greg on in here. We'd love to know if you'd like to see a little bit more of Greg. Maybe we can get him back in here again. But joining us today, we look forward to chatting with you all again next week. But for now, have a really awesome week. God bless, and bye for now, guys.
Bye-bye.